Hey folks, I'm John Darling here at Velosio, one of our cloud engineers specializing in Microsoft Teams adoption, as well as general M365. So excited to talk with everyone about our modern workplace and how that's changed how we connect.
Yes, and my name is Tommy Cuevas. I am the subject matter expert here at Velosio around data strategy, mostly focusing around Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, along with Microsoft M365 and Office 365 in general.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tommy. And I know a bit about this because I'm on your team, but how do you feel like remote work has changed the way we have to interact and collaborate, especially in the past 4 years or so?
So that is a great question. And I know you and I have had conversations and have been with clients having these conversations around not only, day-to-day work and how to work with each other remotely, but we've also talked about how a lot more collaboration has actually been happening since people have been moving to the cloud, which you would think would be kind of counterproductive. But now, since people are able to use tools like SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, it's easier for people to actually communicate than kind of hopping from meeting room to meeting room and from cubicle to cubicle. More people are able to just kind of open up a chat or open up a meeting like this and able to communicate quickly and across borders.
Yeah, and I think pre-COVID or when more folks were in office, there were some bad habits that were easy to get into or ways that information could be lost by just relying on leaning your head over the cubicle and asking someone something or relying on an endless chain of emails for attachments to keep track of your document versioning. So with Teams, with SharePoint, and OneDrive, even though some of those tools were adopted out of necessity, hopefully your organization has started to use them to build better habits for collaborating on projects, for keeping better track of document security and versioning, and sort of made some lemonade out of the lemons that we all got during COVID.
Well, and the other side of that, I mean, that those are prime examples, but it's also made it more accountability on where stuff is housed,
Mhm.
and it's incredible to me, especially when we start talking to customers about the functionality that goes kind of beyond the basic understanding of SharePoint and Teams.
Mhm.
The amount of things that we wind up getting pulled into, the questions that we get around both platforms about, hey, how can we do this better? Oh, I didn't even know Teams did that. I didn't know that was built in. I didn't know SharePoint could do this. It's absolutely incredible what people get out of it. And I've noticed a lot of people start with like the business mind of what
Mhm.
you're going to use those for. But since we're all working remotely, and trust me, I'm one of these people, I'm starved for any kind of human interaction anymore, is people have started interacting in different ways beyond even business to kind of keep up business morale, keep communications up with people, and they're using SharePoint and Teams to do that. So I know for me, those are the projects I enjoyed working on the most, is not only the business side of things, but when people start tossing in those personal office kind of things that traditionally would have happened in an in-person environment, but now are more remote.
Yeah, there's no use sugarcoating it. It is harder to keep a remote team connected and engaged when you can't see each other face to face at the water cooler. And I was never actually in an office with a water cooler, but I do miss the break room. I don't know, water coolers I think might be more of a '90s reference, but but yeah, with Teams, fortunately, you obviously have the chat, you obviously have meetings, but something our team has been able to do, which is really fun, is kind of our virtual happy hours or virtual team get-togethers where we can play games together on Teams, have lunch virtually together, and so it's never quite the same as in person, but through the video functionality, through the great video platform that is Teams, you can at least approximate that and come up with some creative ideas on how to use those tools you already own to help keep folks engaged.
Well, I know, especially for me on the SharePoint side, as I've built out a lot of SharePoint sites for clients of ours, and even in my past, some of the projects I love the work the most on are the ones that do community outreach. Like they go ahead and publicize their community outreach, or especially if you have geodiverse end users and coworkers. People have asked me to build out regional sites for meetups and stuff like that. When they can't be in an office or they got rid of their office, a lot of people post up about happy hours. Or I had one that was, they started tracking all the births at their company and the photos of all the kids that have been around that, their team members have had over the years. And they literally have documented, like, from the time the kid was born all the way now they're graduating high school. And they
Wow.
share that with each other, which I built a whole kind of photo stream just for the SharePoint site where people are able to upload their kids, and they have them separated in, like, you can literally see their journey. Or like I said, with the community outreach part of it, I love it when they start doing stuff like, hey, how can we organize a meetup to go pick up trash or help at, like, the United Way or an organization
Right.
like that. And then they post up on their stream and their news feeds all the photos and the people that have been impacted in positive ways. Those are some of the coolest projects I get to work on when it comes to SharePoint.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, to show that Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, it's not all just for business file storage and kind of your typical meetings. There certainly are ways to use it to kind of help build a positive culture. Viva and Viva Engage, things like that. You might formerly know it as Yammer as well. Has also been rebranded under the Viva umbrella, but that's a great way to kind of use a Microsoft product as your company social media to keep track of things like family events, to maybe you went on a trip and saw a client and went out and had a great dinner with them, or sort of share wins that you have across the organization. So, these platforms don't discriminate as far as the content you can put on there. It doesn't all have to be serious numbers. You can use them to post the kind of things you're talking about,
Yep.
especially on the Vivo side.
And you can embed that directly into SharePoint. So a lot of people do
Yeah,
that. They embed that into their SharePoint site, and then they have, other family components, organizational components this side. And it's a really, really interesting way to kind of have a one-stop shop for all the communications, not only the day-to-day business ones, but also the personal ones as well.
right. And that could be something that you're already licensed for and don't even know it, or is a very inexpensive license away. So if that's something you're curious about, if you think, oh, we might own some of this stuff, but we have trouble bringing it all together and putting it in front of our users, someone like Velosio, a good partner, can help you leverage those products you already have. Take a look at your licensing, take a look at how you can sort of consolidate all that information and content into Teams or into SharePoint, something that's easy to access. So if that sounds appealing, definitely let us know, because oftentimes folks own or have generated much more content than they realize. It's just a matter of finding it. So that's definitely something we love to help with.
I get two reactions out of when I start explaining that kind of stuff, and they're both two great reactions. It's, oh wow, we were looking at an XYZ program to do that. I'm like, no, no, it's already built into Microsoft. You're already paying for it.
Yes.
Or you do also get the reactions like, we've been paying a lot of money for exactly the same service for the last 3 years, and you're telling me now it's built into Microsoft? Yep, it's built into
Oh,
Microsoft.
goodness. Yes, yeah. If folks listening to this, if you're paying for file storage or backup solutions, phone solutions, or meeting platforms, and it's not a Microsoft one,
Yep.
please let your account manager know, because there's a chance that you are probably double paying for some of that, or at least could be getting it much, much cheaper from Microsoft. Kind of to that point, it's not all fun and games. There are definitely some challenges in getting a cohesive culture across different locations. We see that, of course. We have folks across at least 3 different time zones here at the Velosio Cloud team, probably 10 different states. So it can be hard. And of course, some of those challenges are when you can't see someone, it can be harder to communicate effectively. When you're not face to face and you can't get those quick confirmations or quick approvals that you might be able to get when you're all in the same office. But like we mentioned before, there are certainly ways to help that with Teams, with SharePoint, with OneDrive. You can try to duplicate some of those processes that you miss by not being all in one office, and do trainings on those platforms, do your approvals and workflows on there. So, what are some of the other challenges or some of the pitfalls that modern organizations like ours, who are pretty geographically diverse, that you've seen have to overcome?
So that's a great question. One of the first things to kind of clarify a lot of those roadblocks that people bump into, and a lot of times I'm focusing on two things. I'm focusing on user experience, If you make a clunky device, no one's going to want to use it. If you
Mhm.
make it hard to find things, no one's going to want to search for it. They're going to download it once, and then they're going to use the old version of it until somebody yells at them not to use the old version of it anymore. And then the other side is, how do you build out your data structure for it to make sense? And Microsoft kind of has like this three-tiered attack on especially data, and we'll start on that, which is OneDrive's for you and maybe somebody else. It's really for personal storage. And this is how I kind of direct people when I start talking about SharePoint and usability. I say Teams is for your department. Maybe you're working on a project with a large group of people. You're going to do a lot of collaboration. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. Use Teams for that. And then on top of that, a lot of people, and they'll explain where SharePoint, been a shift in SharePoint, is a lot of people are now using SharePoint, and this is kind of how Microsoft sees it, this is information for everybody. This is your main information source for your organization. So instead of sending somebody a link to your onboarding for HR, you put it in the HR site, you make it as blatant as humanly possible that, hey, this is where you're supposed to go. But on that side, as it's been moving more towards this is information for an entire organization, Teams has been taking kind of that over in the this is just for my department information.
Mhm.
This is not for public consumption. This is for my department only. So like, accounting, you don't want all your payroll and all your accounts receivable and all your accounts payable, maybe not on a SharePoint site, but a lot of people are starting to store that in Teams, and then
Mhm.
it's ready for prime time. When it's ready for public consumption, they shift it over to SharePoint. And I find that it makes it a lot easier for people to find stuff in that architecture. I find that if you focus on user experience, that helps people really adopt, and it really helps with that change management. I tell people all the time, I use video game design theory in it.
Mhm.
If I want somebody to pay attention to onboarding, this news filter, and I mean this news feed, and I want them to go ahead and put their expenses in, I make it as blatantly possible. This is where you're supposed to go to find this information. Here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Here's that weird textured wall that makes you notice maybe there's something behind the wall. We do the
Right.
same thing when we design people's SharePoint site, and we find it makes it A, people enjoy it more, and B, it makes it way easier to find the information that you need.
Yeah, and we admit there definitely can be a bit of a growing pain to get your data into the M365 platform in the first place. But our goal is that once you're done working with us, once you're done getting in that platform, you shouldn't have to call us much after that. You know, of course, we'll miss talking to you, but we hope that once you're in this platform, you find those gains, and that efficiency means that you have much less of a headache accessing your data. So if any of this kind of struck a note, or got the juices flowing with how you can leverage the Microsoft tools for remote work at your organization, don't hesitate to reach out to us, to your account manager at Velosio, to our concierge desk. We're, of course, happy to help with any project, large or small. But we thank you for joining us here today and hope this has been informative and fun.
Thank you, everybody.